Hello YouTube. Today, as promised, I wanted to talk to you guys about the build I've been messing around with in 0.9. I think it's important to note as well that although I am providing a guide here in this video on how I've reached this state with my character, I am by no means like an expert LE player with 5k plus hours and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So if there are inefficiencies, if there are mistakes or anything like that that have been made, forgive me, you know, please be kind. But yeah, ultimately I'd say the builds come together pretty well and we've pushed pretty far. You know, we're reaching around the 160 corruption now on our highest monoliths, and I would say that it can push further. I'm going to need definitely a little more of my ward per second on my idols, though. I'm going to need to grab better idols because they are not doing well on the word retention and the word per second right now. So yeah, that's an issue. But other than that, yeah, build's been doing great, and it's still not fully geared out because, surprise, surprise, RNG's not on my side. So, you know, it is what it is. However, even with the gear that we have right now, the build is, like I said, clearing past about the 160 level on corruption. It's able to farm T3 bosses in dungeons while virtually AFKing. You probably saw that in some of the clips there. However, even with the gear I have on now, the build is clearing past, like I said, 150 plus corruption in monoliths. It's able to farm T3 bosses in dungeons while virtually AFKing. T4s are still a bit of an issue unless you're confident and you can dodge every boss ability. Yesterday, I almost cleared T4 Jelra. I was like that fucking close, and then she just got me with one of her beams. If not, you know, if you can't do that, then just farm some better gear and you'll get there. I know I don't have best in slot gear in virtually any of my slots, so as far as we've pushed the build this far, I believe that with some, you know, better gear and some better upgrades, obviously we can push it a lot farther. I am lacking a big part of ward retention. I would like to have through my idols here. So my ward, I'm getting mana spent gained as ward from some of these idols, and then this one's for frostbite and as well as a lightning aegis, and then I have a throne of ambition that I was lucky enough to drop, and then here we just grab some of the health, mana, and armor. However, I would like to have ward per second or have ward retention on these idols here, and ultimately, I feel that that's just going to really help out with our survivability, and obviously with just keeping our ward even higher. You will notice we aren't a low life spec, and that is because I wanted to go for the Morning Frost boots instead for this build, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. With all that said, let's actually go over the build, the gear real quick. So in this build, we are using the Morning Frost boots. The Morning Frost I chose because these boots are allowing for some dexterity scaling for our cold damage, and since we grabbed dexterity through the prismatic blade node on our tree, I felt that that would be a great synergy, as well as it's also providing us with a nice increase to our freeze rate multiplier, which is allowing us to freeze things a lot easier. So I think the boots are pretty nice. The downside to them is that unless you're lucky enough to drop them with 20% increased move speed, you're going to feel really slow. So, you know, I wasn't lucky enough, as you can see, and the build feels, you know, pretty slow while I run around. However, we do have teleport on focus, so, you know, that doesn't become too much of an issue. We also use a haste node with our focus, so for every 20 mana that is regenerated while we focus, we're going to grant ourselves haste for each second. For every 20 mana we spend, we grant ourselves haste for 1 second. There it is. And so basically what that means is, you know, we spend our attacks a few times, and then basically you're just like, okay, I'm gonna go recharge my shit, and then, oh, look at that, I'm already, like, I'm hasted now for like 5-6 seconds. So it's pretty nice. You get like your move speed back. Doesn't feel too bad. And ultimately, I've been enjoying that. But the Morning Frost boots, the boost that they provide is pretty nice. I won't say that they're absolutely needed, to be quite honest. If I had like an awesome pair of boots here, I could probably swap them out. But quite frankly, I think that a 2 or 3 LP pair of Morning Frost with 20% move speed, if you are so lucky enough to drop them, would be absolutely best in slot here, because again, the cold damage to attacks and spells that we're going to grant ourselves from the dexterity scaling is just really nice. So I paired these boots with the Bone Clamor Barbet and or Barbute, whatever. The reason why is pretty obvious. I would think it has a T6 dex roll, had T6 int roll, both of which scale our spells and our damage, or sorry, our attacks and our damage. And then it has a 150 armor roll as well as 130 armor on the implicit. So a lot of armor on it, as well as necrotic res and 23 ward per second, which we love our ward, and ward per second is good. So this is easily, in my opinion, the best in slot helmet for this build. And definitely if you are lucky enough to find with LP, oh my god, this thing would be pretty nutty. Another option you could actually use for the helm if you don't have a Bone Clamor is just finding yourself like a Celestial helm, because it's going to give you some increased crit chance. Obviously try to focus on granting yourself as much intelligence and or dex as possible, or both of course. This one I wasn't lucky enough to hit the dex. I hit a +1 focus instead, which wasn't too bad. And I used this helmet for a little while. And then I found this helmet, I forget where I dropped it, but I found the Prismatic Gaze, and I actually swapped out of this helmet for this one. And I'll admit, it felt really, really nice. The less damage taken felt really nice. The increased crit chance was feeling beautiful, and the armor shred, sorry, not the armor shred, but the resistance shred that it provides as well from the prism shards is really nice against single targets and thick enemies. So yeah, I really, really give a thumbs up for Prismatic Gaze. And yeah, that's what I would do for your helmet slot if you don't have Bone Clamor Barbet. As far as the boot slot as well, I just wanted to mention the boots alternatives here that I have. Always just focusing on prioritizing some int. Obviously you want to try and get as high as int as you can, get some movement speed, get some health, get some armor, whatever is going to help you, movement speed, you know, the normal things. And as for implicits, you can try to gain word retention, so try to aim for that. That's probably going to be your best in slot. If you can't find any of those, I found that the Solarium Greaves were quite nice, because it allows us to actually save points on our passive tree as well from not having to take any of the fire res nodes. And yeah, as for swords, if you find 2 shards of the Shattered Lance just from doing, I think it's Raye fight in the Stolen Lance, you just go and do that fight. He basically drops it like almost every time, and you can just farm up 2 of those and rock those. If you want to though, you can also go to Crystal Swords. Crystal Swords I personally find better, and the reason why is because A, their implicits are insane. Even with these ones, like I have bad implicits on mine, and it's still out DPSing the shards of the Shattered Lance. And that's simply because of the affixes you're able to roll on a Crystal Sword. You can have attack speed, you can get yourself more crit chance, get yourself armor shred, and then I wasn't lucky enough. I got health on melee hit, which I guess isn't all that bad. It's kind of good, but ultimately I would have liked to have, you know, something else that was damage related there. I think it would have just been a lot better. But in any case, that was the swords. The rings are pretty simple. I just got a little bit of damage and then some res and health. Of course, again, the bases could definitely use an update. I would love to have ivory ring bases, and these would give a ton of necrotic res, which would allow us to drop the necrotic res here and swap that out for maybe mana or something else that's going to help the build. As well as, you know, any necrotic res that I might be having anywhere else on the build, I would be able to drop that. So it would be really nice. For the relic, I have a +3 to Flame Ward relic. Honestly, I wouldn't even prioritize the Flame Ward levels. I just found this, so I was like, hey, sweet. Flame Ward levels, that's nice. But honestly, if I found a better one with like different levels, I would certainly use it, because the Flame Ward levels aren't just aren't giving enough value for taking up an affix. So yeah, definitely could use an upgrade in this slot, but this is kind of what we're using here. And then we also grab some crit chance and additional resistances in this slot. Again, if you find a way for yourself to get better resistances, I would switch that up for some mana and health as well, to get yourself some more scaling there. And in the glove slot, we simply use this to grab ourselves a little bit of damage leech as well as crit chance. And we did hit health regen on these gloves, but ultimately I would have liked to have something different, like obviously health or mana would have been a better roll. And then I filled out my Fizz Res with that slot. But yeah, overall, that's the gear, and that's how all of that's coming together. So with all that said, let's talk about the passives and the skill tree, and then we'll wrap this whole thing up. One last thing I wanted to actually mention before we hopped into that was the idol I have here, 7% chance to gain Lightning Aegis when hit. I feel like Lightning Aegis, from a lot of the videos I've been watching and everything I've been seeing online from, you know, the streams I've been seeing, I don't see a lot of people using Lightning Aegis in their builds. And I know that, you know, it does take up an affix line on your idol, but ultimately I just find that this thing is OP as fuck. Like, this Lightning Aegis gives me 25% less damage taken whenever it procs, and it procs for 10 seconds when it does. And the 7% chance, honestly, you may as well just be higher, because I feel like it's up all the fucking time. I've never run an Echo where I don't see my Lightning Aegis up virtually at all times while I'm running through. You know, granted, we are a melee build, so obviously we do get hit a lot, and so it does make sense to me that it would be up a lot of the time. But again, don't sleep on Lightning Aegis. It is amazing. Even if you're not a Lightning build, the 25% less damage taken, can't really sleep on that. Anyways, let's talk about the passives. So I just recently brought the character to level 99. There's actually a really easy road up there too. Nothing like PoE or any of the other ARPGs that I know. But as for the passive tree, we've got 32 points into our mage class here, and we've got 80 into Spellblade. Now, I'm not going to go over every single point individually. I truly believe that you can just, you know, pause the screen and you can take a look at the nodes that we have here. It's probably just as easy, right? But I will go over a few of the notable ones that we took, just to make sure that you know that they are important nodes and you should probably take them in the build as well. First and foremost, Reactive Ward. Reactive Ward, I find in a lot of the guides that I've seen, it's overlooked a lot, and I'm not quite sure why. There's a lot of times in the game where, even though you may be like, I have all the fucking ward, I have all the leech, I have all the shit, like, you might be thinking to yourself that you're invincible, and you're not gonna go below that 70% health threshold. The thing is that I've realized that I think it's void damage and poison damage, both of which, or maybe it's necrotic, I don't know, but there's some damage types that I'm noticing in this game that are just blasting through my ward. Like, it's like ward doesn't exist, and it's kind of like chaos damage to energy shield in Path of Exile. It's like the ward doesn't do anything, it just drains your life anyways. So there's plenty of times where that's going to happen, and it's easy enough for, if you only had, say, 1500 ward at the time that happens, for that ward to also get depleted real quickly in one big hit, and then you're in trouble. So I find that having Reactive Ward, just proc, it's really nice. It gives us a huge burst of ward when it happens. And then in addition to that, we're also getting Warden, which gives us a 50% ward retention, which you can almost see as like 50% just more, like, not 50% more ward, but I don't know, it's like 50% more life. Like, it feels like it's just kind of weird how ward retention is working in this game. The more I get, just every little bit I get, I feel so much stronger against hits. So yeah, I found that this is definitely an important node as well. Of course, Mage Flurry, you're definitely going to want attack speed. Shatterstrike scales really, really well with attack speed, and especially with the interaction that we're using with Whiteout, you're definitely going to want as much attack speed as you can get. As we move into the Spellblade tree, I opted for Elemental Affinity with 5 points. Now this one is actually a flex spot. If you find that you're really good on Ele Res from your gear slots, you can just drop this because the damage that you're actually getting from it is certainly not worth it. So in my case, like, I'm kind of low on cold res and I'm also still low on poison res right now. So for me, I don't drop it because I want the cold res to stay at least at like 40%. But obviously I would love to get more cold res. Again, swapping out my rings with ivory rings will allow me to swap out the necrotic res for cold res, for example, if I wanted to, and therefore we can balance that out and take 5 points back on our passive tree and put them somewhere else. So just wanted to point out that that is a flexible node here, and if you are good on elemental res, do not take that. The most important ones you're going to want here are Gemini, so that you can dual wield, and then these 3 nodes here for your damage. So Prismatic Blade's going to give us a lot of dex, and it's also going to give us cold damage to melee attacks. So and the dex is giving us cold damage to melee attacks as well from the Morning Frost boots. So we're getting this at double its effectiveness. It's pretty nice. We then get Volka's Razor, which is giving us 150% increased damage with our melee attacks. And then we use Blade Weaver, which we use in conjunction with our Firebrand, and I'll explain that in just a second. But essentially, every time we use our Firebrand, it's gaining us a stack of Blade Weaver, and the Blade Weaver, every single stack is giving us 15% more elemental damage. So as you stack that up, it gets really, really powerful. Of course, then we just go into a lot of our defensive nodes and then some additional damage, and attack speed. So again, just go ahead and take a screenshot, or not a screenshot, pause your screen and take a look, and then go ahead and spec the nodes as you see fit. We do not take anything in the Sork tree. There are some nodes in here that could be beneficial for you, of course. I'm not going to say that it's completely useless, like Mana Shell could be good. Of course, Wisdom could still be useful. Anything to deal with Ward can be useful. The Cryomancer could be useful for you. I just found that, honestly, like, these nodes weren't any better, really, than the nodes I could grab from Spellblade. And in a lot of cases, they are actually just worse trade-offs, because then I can't get to the further parts of the Spellblade tree very easily. So, yeah, I just say don't do anything in Sork, just stay with Spellblade and Mage class, and you should be fine. And now for our skills. So our first mastery is, of course, Shatterstrike. Shatterstrike, the most important things that you're going to want to note here is Whiteout. Whiteout allows Shatterstrike to repeat its cast after it finishes, and with 2 points in there, we're going to have 2 repeats. So with 1 shot of Shatterstrike, it's going to go 3 times, and that means that we're going to get a lot of damage from that, because it snapshots with each one of those. So when you attack once, those 3 attacks are getting the same benefits that the first attack got. So it's actually really, really nice when you pair it with the Firebrand stacks and the Blade Weaver stacks. It actually makes for giga damage. Other than that, you're mostly just focusing on gaining some area and attack speed with it, along with damage. So pretty easy stuff there. We then move on to Focus. Focus, we're simply going to focus on our Conveyance node, and that is so that we can grant ourselves teleport without having to take teleport. This is really nice too, because the teleport on Focus is actually a little bit different in its behavior than the teleport on the teleport skill. I put out a video on this actually just like a week ago or something, talking about this, and again, I'm not sure if it's actually intended, but the Focus teleport allows you to go, over ledges, through walls, all sorts of stuff that the regular teleport was not allowing me to go. So it's really, really nice, and I recommend using that while you still can. The Revelation nodes and Mind Shell nodes, Everward, Haste node, These are all very important for keeping your ward up and keeping yourself alive, along with the armor node to make sure that while you're sitting there channeling, you're not just getting blasted. The haste is, pretty self-explanatory. It's just so you can have a little extra move speed, because the boots suck with move speed, of course. And then, of course, you want to boost as much mana regen as possible and as much of that burst as possible, so you can just not be standing still for, too long. It's usually just about a second and a half that we stand still, and then we're off to the races. The third is Flame Ward. Flame Ward, pretty self-explanatory as well. You're mainly just going to be granting yourself as much ward as possible and less damage taken modifiers as possible. You are also going to want to make sure that you have Astonish. This makes sure that Flame Ward gets cast when you are stunned, which gets really nice in the higher monolith tiers, because obviously stun can become a problem for some people. So obviously when that happens, just a nice little defensive layer. In addition to that, you're going to want to focus on just grabbing some duration and some mana efficiency to make sure that you have a good uptime on your Flame Ward. Enchant weapon, what we're going to focus on is Kindling Blade. This makes sure that it's automatically recasting for you, and make sure that it's just like one less button that you have to think about pressing. And then the most important thing after that is making sure that we get its duration up. So I made sure to take some of the duration nodes, and that is to make sure that we get an extra 4 seconds of duration out of enchant weapon, making sure that we only ever have about a 1 to 2 second downtime in between flips. So it's really, really nice, and we don't really ever notice the downtime on enchant weapon that way. And then the most important thing here is your Firebrand. Firebrand is used for 2 things. One is insane ward generation. I've used a bunch of different skills, including Mana Strike, to see how they compared to Firebrand in terms of ward generation. And they don't even come close. Like, Firebrand is insane for ward generation. So just use this as your ward generator. It's a free skill, so it doesn't cost you any mana. It still deals some pretty decent damage to trash mobs. And in addition to that, we can give ourselves some Frostbite chance stacks. So this actually allows us to drop this. I don't have to use this. The only reason I'm using this is for the Lightning Aegis, remember. So you can actually drop that. You don't have to actually use it. The other thing, there we go. The other thing that it is used for is Incineration and Illuminating Fire. These are very, very important, because the next melee attack that is not Firebrand consumes all stacks of Firebrand and deals more damage per stack consumed. So this is yet another massive amount of damage when we add 2 additional stacks of Firebrand to its already original, I believe it's 4 stacks. 4 times. So you're getting 6 stacks of Firebrand times 20. So that means that we are doing 120% more damage just on that one melee attack, in conjunction with the Blade Weaver stacks, which is adding on another 150% more damage. And then there's other, obviously, more damage modifiers everywhere else. It's just a lot of damage, guys. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, all in all, it all comes together, makes for a really fun build, satisfying to play. It was definitely satisfying to level. There were points during like the 70 through 80s period where I was kind of doing a lot of tinkering and, playing around with my skills and my passives. Do not be afraid to do that with the build. It's pretty versatile, and you can kind of just make trade-offs wherever you see fit. But yeah, if you like the build, you like the video, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button down below. You can also catch me streaming the build or streaming a new build that I'm going to be starting. I plan to do something with the Herald of the Scurry helmet and do some crazy shit with some squirrels. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Anyways, catch me streaming Sundays through Tuesdays, 5 through 9. I will admit the stream's been a little hit or miss lately due to some health issues that I've been having. But I do plan on coming back in full force, as soon as possible. But until then, I will put out as many YouTube videos as I can to make sure that I'm still communicating with you guys, let you know I'm still here, I'm still making builds, I'm still trying to communicate. I still love you guys. Anyways, till next time, I'll see you all later, and peace out.